Okay, good morning, Lviv. This is my Red Dawn series. It's Saturday morning, February 26th, 2022. So we had some air raid siren this morning. I only heard one of them, and that was ordered to leave the parking garage. So apparently an air raid siren went off at night, didn't hear it, and people were in the garage. So we had it yesterday, and it turned out it was some Russian airplane, Su-25, close air support aircraft, coming in and out of the border north of Lviv. It was pointed in the direction of Lviv for some time, and then it turned around. It's not really clear if that aircraft had dropped some bombs or on Rivne, and if that was the aircraft that had bombed Rivne airport and Lutsk airport, or it was something different. I'm not entirely clear on it. I'm reading Google translated articles from the mayor of Lviv office. This morning, I'm not sure what the reason was. I haven't gotten any information on it. So things are pretty tense here. Yesterday I was making a video about a short bus I saw just for fun, and then wanted to show off our garbage cans again. The cages we got for the garbage cans to prevent the quote-unquote bears at night from moving them around, but obviously there's no bears here, they're just alcoholics. So I got in a little trouble for that. Someone gave me an ass chewing for making videos. Apparently we're not supposed to be making videos outside. It could aid the enemy in guiding bombs or something, but most bombs are actually guided by GPS now, precision munitions, or someone using a laser sighting. I don't know about the use of radio transmitters and these things anymore. Maybe it's just, I don't know, but we're not supposed to be doing this. There is a lot of hysteria and panic now, but I think it's calmed down. I think it's calmed down, but people are definitely on edge and people are definitely scared. But so far, Lviv is unscathed as far as I know. I didn't hear any explosions this morning at all, but I'm quite south of the city. And actually, in this direction, if you walk long enough, you'll be in Poland in about a day. It would be like a one-day walk. It's about 60 US miles, so it's like 2 marathons. So it is feasible, I think, to walk 60 miles in a day if you're in 24 hours. If you walk 24, it's like 2 to 3 miles an hour walking with backpacks on and stuff and taking rest. It's doable. It would definitely, you need to be conditioned a little bit. You need to be in shape and everything. But it is feasible. The wait at the border is 24 hours, with the cars, the cars and buses. There's a 24-hour wait to get in Poland. But I guess I kind of, if you're running from your country, you're kind of giving it to them. Being in a democracy and being in a democratic country, you got to be a little bit strong. You got to stay. I like what Zelensky said yesterday. I don't need a ride. I need a gun, or I don't need to go anywhere. Just give me a rifle. And I like that attitude. And now yesterday too, they're handing out rifles in Kyiv. I think it's a good idea, but there's consequences. It's just like in America, when anyone can buy a gun. It's now you're depending on an individual's decision, and how they will be on that day, and there can be unexpected outcomes. Living in a free society can be a little bit dangerous in different ways than living in an oppressed society. Because things come down to individuals making decisions instead of the state making decisions, and you don't know what's going on in people's heads, especially when guns are accessible. But a democracy needs guns to be accessible to the public, because you don't know what, it's an X factor, it keeps the government in check, it keeps invaders in check. But this X factor, giving guns, I think they handed out 10,000 rifles in Kyiv. That's dangerous for the Russian soldiers. They don't know if some old lady is gonna, in her little bag, pulling her little cart or whatever, has an AK under it, and she can take out, a squad, if she catches them off guard. It really will put a lot of paranoia into the invaders. But at the same time, we saw some gun violence at the Kyiv train station. Some guy was firing off his AK, I think, to clear the crowd so he could get on the train. He just got an AK gifted to him, and he decided to use it so he could, clear a path or something. I'm not sure. I saw the video, but that's what it looked like to me. That needs confirmation. It could have been a soldier just trying to break up the crowd. But in any case, we can expect some consequences for handing out so many weapons to the public. But at the same time, it's needed. The situation is pretty dire in Kyiv, and I don't really want to see this East Ukraine, West Ukraine. CNN was talking about what I was talking about yesterday, that this Galicia region of Ukraine, what they call Galatia, this would be left as Western Ukraine and left to Europe, and then the rest would go behind an iron curtain of sorts. CNN was discussing that that's a possible strategy they have, and it's looking more that way, that they wouldn't be able to control the whole country, especially in a place like this where people would be very hostile towards them. I mean, they're having a hard enough time in a place where there's a lot more ethnic Russians, and they're having even a hard time getting support from their own people. So that might be a more realistic goal for them, if you want to call it that, although I would never hope they succeed in the goals. But I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen next, and how to prepare myself for it, or what the next move should be. As of now, I think I will stay here another week at least, until the things clear up at the border, because it wouldn't make any sense to go there and just sit for 24 hours. And so far, no bombs have fallen on Lviv. Supermarkets working, pharmacies working, the shops are closing early, but we were able to get Indian food delivered yesterday. There's an Indian restaurant here called Lotus. They have the traditional tandoori oven, and they deliver. And they actually brought two guys, and they're very curious because my parents came from India to America a long time ago, in 1960s. So I'm one of these Indian Americans, or Americans of Indian descent, as one would say. So they were very curious what I was doing here. But I'm kind of with Zelensky. This is my home, and I want to stay. I'm not going to run, and not unless it gets so dangerous, but even then, I think I would ride it out, because where can I go? Go stay in a refugee camp or rent an Airbnb and go broke, and that's just as bad as being dead. Being broke is even worse than being dead, in my opinion. Sometimes, especially, or being indebted or something. But maybe you don't agree with that, but that's just my view of life. I'm free out here. I'm living debt free. I'm working from home. And don't have any of these stresses that people in Western countries have, with consumer loans and debts and everything being so expensive. Food out here is rather affordable. Ukraine is a agricultural country, so healthy food, fruits, vegetables, rice, lentils, even the occasional steak. It doesn't break your back here. You can eat very well. Electricity and gas, relative to Europe, is not that expensive. It is expensive relative to Ukraine's salaries, but if you've got a Western salary out here, you can live okay. Now I want to talk about the sanctions. The sanctions are still a joke. They're talking about sanctioning Putin's personal assets. But if you know about Pablo Escobar or any of these crime lords, they never have personal assets in their name. I mean, Pablo Escobar owned a taxi company with 3 cars that was making $50 million a year. He was the most successful taxi entrepreneur in the world. And he was able to get away with things for so long because he did things through other people. And Putin is the same way. Putin, on paper, only owns 1 house and 3 cars. So I don't know how sanctioning him would do anything, because he doesn't actually own anything. You have to sanction all Russian nationals. Everybody with a Russian passport has to have their account frozen. And then, there would have to be a process to unlock it, to, vet the people. If it's like some Russian national who's been living abroad for 30 years, they can provide papers or something, and they can be cleared that they have no connection to the Russian inner circle. But, a lot of, it would suck for the good Russians who are living abroad or whatever, who haven't done anything, but a lot of good people are suffering here. A lot of good people are going to suffer in Europe through inflation and through economic problems, higher energy prices and job loss and everything. So, yeah, these sanctions we need to see sanctions with teeth. We really, this is kind of kind of idiotic. It really is showing weakness. I can understand the SWIFT, being hesitant on SWIFT, because it can be a two-way street that companies in Europe won't be able to get paid either. This personal sanctions, they're kind of a joke. It has to be on all Russian people if they want to do something. The other thing here is they really need to, step up the Stinger missiles. I think there's enough javelins. They could probably use more. It could never be enough. But the real problem is the air support. And just like in Afghanistan in the 1980s, the Mujahideen were able to turn it around against the Soviet Union with the Stingers by taking out the air support. Once the air support was knocked out, things were pretty equal on the ground. And matter of fact, the Mujahideen got a pretty big advantage, because they knew the terrain and they had the numbers and they had the home field advantage. So I don't know why Europe is hesitating. I think the Latvians gave 50 of them, but we have like hundreds of Russian aircraft to deal with. And I imagine that the Stinger is not always 100% effective. So you would need to double the amount of the aircraft, and their air force would have to be here. So that would be a lot. You would need like 1,000 of them or something. And they could put software in there to, with an activation key or something, so that way they don't fall into the wrong hands and terrorist hands. They could put software into those systems, because they are mostly software driven. The actual rocket itself and everything would go nowhere if it didn't have a guidance system and didn't have someone to turn on the system and the electronics. So all that stuff can be locked. So I don't know why the West is hesitating on that, because I think that would be huge. That would really change the game. Even the Russians, they must have memories of this from Afghanistan. People like Putin's age and everything, and these generals must have memories of Stingers, and that was back in the 80s. I imagine the Stinger version now is like DOS versus Windows 12. That was like a DOS version of the Stinger, and now we have the Windows 12 version of it. So, or like the Apple II computer now versus the Apple iPhone 13, or the MacBook. It would be that much of a difference. It would be a much more effective weapon now. But we're just seeing a lot of talk. I'm kind of with Zelensky on this. The West has to do a bit more. He's like fighting on the front line. Klitschko, these world-class boxers, they could have jumped on a private jet and run away. These guys are like billionaires almost. They could have all run away, but they didn't. So that's why I'm staying. I don't want to go anywhere. I just think, anyway, this is my home. So yeah, we need to see a little bit more of these sanctions, but it's a bit crazy. And long term, as I was saying yesterday, there has to be just an overhaul of the energy policy. The energy policy needs to be looked at. We can't be giving money to our enemies anymore. So that's all I have for today. We're coming on 13 minutes, but maybe I'll post something a little bit later as I get some more news.